You are now rocking with the best Illmatic podcast with your host, Louis L. Reed. Surviving beats, overcoming breaks. We got motion. Your go-to podcast unpacking hip-hop, trauma, and transformation.
"24 years ago, I was robbed in the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut, in an area town which we call Newfield. I'm from Bridgeport, born and raised there. As a result of being robbed, I participated in a drive-by shooting that at the time inadvertently and seriously injured a then 5-6-year-old child whose mother I knew, whose father I knew. I even knew the child just by virtue of having seen the mom around the way and in the neighborhood. Today, I am across from probably one of the most grace-filled, special people that I have ever had the benefit of not just meeting, not just knowing, but also having had grace extended to me by. That child who was 5 years old, 6 years old, his name is Tyron Rivera, and today he is in front of me at the age of what?
30.
30 years old,
man.
30 years old.
Sir.
It is so good to be with you. It is so good to have a conversation with you. I'm almost in tears. I really am almost in tears. Reason being is because, and we're going to get into this a little bit, I was shot when I was 14 years old. And the person who shot me was 25 at the time. I was shot over a $3 crack cocaine deal that went wrong. The person who shot me intentionally. And that person was incarcerated, came home, shot someone else, went back in, and came back home. I have been wanting to have a conversation with him in the same way that you're having a conversation with me. And I know what it means to be in your position, and I also know what it means to be in the position of the person who shot me. So, incidentally, when I got shot, the person who shot me is on his way home. He gives me a call in 1999. He comes home in 2000. Incidentally, I go in for a version of what it is that he did to me. Mm-hmm. I was going to, in effect, end his life when he came home. Mm-hmm. Now I'm incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And I have a change of heart. I have a change of mind, because what it is that I'm holding on for and towards him, now you very well could be holding on to that for and towards me. Mm-hmm. The guy who shot me comes home and then he goes back in. Guess what he goes back in for? He goes back in for robbing and shooting someone incidentally down Newfield, mm-hmm. right where you got shot.
Mm-hmm. And that is crazy because that person that he shot was my cousin.
The person who shoots me at 14 years old mm-hmm. comes home mm-hmm. in 2000 is... Wait, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. The person who shot me when I was 14 years old, mm-hmm. he was 25. Mm-hmm. He comes home on or around 1999 when you get shot, when you're about 5 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm about 22 years old at that time. Mm-hmm. This guy comes home and shoots someone else in and around where you got shot, and that person was your cousin mm-hmm. who he shot and killed? Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm.
Because initially I didn't know that he was my cousin until I was told. Like I was, a little too young to know that he was my cousin until my mom told me, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
Even though that person knew me, but
Mm-hmm.
family members know you, but you
don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel about that dynamic? Your cousin gets killed by the person who shot me up the street from where it is that you got shot years later.
That's finding, and it's crazy. I'm just like now finding out. That's just like crazy how things just come in a circle like that. Like it's things is just so close. It's like almost like how we say a small world.
Yeah.
Like how that happened. That's crazy.
And the person who also shot me, you knew his nephew who was killed, Kai.
Mm-hmm. Like I ain't gonna say we was like friends or anything like that, but we had a few, run-ins with each other, not in a bad way, but he was friends with like a cousin of mine, so I've been around him a few times.
And incidentally, he gets killed at around the age of like 17, 18 years old.
I think so.
Yeah. Wow. Let's go back for a second to July 5th of 1999. How old were you? What was that day like, as best as you can remember?
Well, at the time I was 5 years old, regular day on Newfield, playing with my sister, had my dad around, my mom, hanging out with the family. You know how Newfield is, was always lively, everybody outside. And
it was hot outside that day.
Hot outside.
Yeah.
Just a regular Newfield day, just enjoying 5-year-old life.
And just to contextualize for the folks who are watching, listening, Newfield is an area of town that's on the east end of Bridgeport, and it consists of a major park. So if you're from the east end, typically, if in the summertime, there's going to be basketball games there. Usually, there's going to be summer cookouts there
all the time. Yeah,
all the time. That's what Newfield is,
yep.
right? Yeah.
So
I just wanted to contextualize that. Yeah. And so that day,
we just out on the porch, regular day, and next thing you know, I hear gunfire, which sounds like fireworks. That's what I thought it was.
Because it was the day after. Keep in mind, contextualize for your young mind at the time, it was actually the day after the 4th of July. This is July 5th. So when you hear the gunshots, I'm thinking that it's fireworks.
Yeah. I'm thinking that it's fireworks. So the thing I remember is Shonda Moak, she pulled me down. Not knowing what's going on, I get back up. And then next, I just feel something hot go through my shoulder. And then I look down and I just see blood pouring out. And I turn around to my mom, real calm. I remember this part. I'm just like, Mom, I got shot. And to see the look on my mom's face, she just lost her mind.
Yeah.
She just picked me up, grabbed me. She yelled to my father, who was across the street, talking to one of my stepmothers.
Yeah.
And we just jumped in the car with her. She was speeding, trying to get to the hospital. Yeah. And from her story, she tells me that the police kind of stopped her because, she's driving on sidewalks and trying to, and when she tells them, I have a 5-year-old kid in the car, he's shot, he escorted her all the way to the hospital, like basically, get through traffic with his lights on. And the last thing I remember in that moment was the cop grabbed me from my mom and he's running with me down the hallway. And next thing you know, everything just went black after that. I must have just passed out.
Oh, man. It's hard for me to have this conversation with you because at the time that you got shot, I had kids that were your age. And I remember getting a call from someone, and she said, did you just shoot up Newfield? And obviously, like, street guy, right? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm in New York at the time. That's what I'm telling her. I'm like, I'm in New York. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm in my mind, I'm saying, why are you concerned about me? Why are you concerned about me shooting someone anyways who actually robbed me
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I was just making sure, she said, because I heard a kid got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. I was like, I feel bad about like whatever kid got shot, but I was like, I don't know where that was coming from because I don't know. I'm in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm thinking to myself, there was no kid that got shot. I intentionally aimed my gun out of a vehicle at the person who was conspiring to rob me.
Mm-hmm.
And then more calls start coming in, my pagers start blowing up, and people start telling me that there was a kid out there that got shot. I can't tell you how I've done a lot of stuff in my life, Tyron.
Mm-hmm.
I done shot people. I've never been a troublemaker. But I participated in street level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had never in my life felt as sick to my stomach for being involved in something that was street level as much as I was on that day. When you were on your way to the hospital, what do you remember? Like, what's going through the mind of a child who's only 5 years old? Like, what was that like?
To be quite honest, for me, like, I wasn't even really crying because I was hurt. It was more so seeing my mom's reaction. You know, at this time, her and my dad, these are my protectors. These are the people that make sure I'm safe. And when I'm seeing them look scared and look worried and my mom crying, it made me crying out because I was calm up until I seen my mom losing her mind. And I'm just like, okay, if my mom's losing her mind, like, this is not good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she looks scared. Now I'm scared.
Yeah.
So
your reaction is based off of...
It was really based off
fear. Yeah.
So that's what made me have fear. Like, it wasn't even really getting shot part at all, to be honest. Like, the hardest part about that was really more so after.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was after? Like, what did after look like for you? I know what that looked like for me when I was 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that I was angry. Like, for me, I was angry. Mm-hmm. And it changed my life. Mm-hmm. I can point to the day before I got shot and the day I woke up about a week later because I was in ICU. I had a critical injury. I knew there was something in my mind that said nobody was going to hurt me ever again, which created a monster. Me being quick on the draw. What was that like for you?
For me, I was just glad I was alive. You know, I was just glad I was safe. You know, I didn't have no hate. I think because I was so young that it was a little different for me. Like, it was more so of just like, well, I'm glad I'm safe. I don't want to go back to Newfield. That's it.
Newfield represented a place of hurt and harm for you. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to go back there. No. Keep in mind that Newfield is a place where kids are supposed to be, right? Kids should feel safe playing in a park. Kids should, and you at that particular point in time, you weren't in the park. You were in front of a yard, and you were in a yard in front of a house. Yeah. But in the general vicinity, that's a place where a kid should want to go and be a child.
100%.
And you didn't want to go back there.
Nah, I didn't want to go back there at all because it was more so of the fear of like, well, what if this happens again? And, you know, eventually I did go back and I felt safe and I felt all right, and things just went back to normal for me. You know, it was some things that happened, like they did like the march. I'm trying to remember.
There was a march.
I was in the arms of like a reverend at the time.
Yeah.
They rolled me in a police car. Yeah. I just felt special, to be honest. Anything else, like any hate or anything like that, I think just at the time I was just too young, you know,
to know what hate was.
Yeah. Like it was more fear than anything.
I think that when I hear you say that you were too young to know what hate was, I don't think that it was just so that because you were young. I think that it also had to do with your parents. Your parents raised you to be a loving person. I remember I used to always see, every time I saw you, this is the vision that I had of you, the visual. You always had a sharp lineup.
Yeah, my mom ain't play, man.
You always had a sharp lineup, and you would be in sandals. Every time I saw you in the summertime.
Don't saying those names. I
And
don't like talking about it.
And incidentally, what you may not know is that your mom used to be with my sister, my older sister. Your mom would stay the night at, like, I know your mom. I know your parents. I know your dad. I know Slaw. Like, Slaw would be considered like the OG, the big homie.
The crazy thing is wasn't you was friends with my cousin Marquis back then, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he with you that day?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, so Marquis was the person who stole the car that I used. It was a Lexus. And I used that car the intention was not for me to use the car in a shooting. We actually got the car. I was going to take it to the chop shop. It was the year that you got shot was 1999. It was a 2000 Lexus. I was going to take it to the chop shop and get the VIN numbers remixed on it and do the insurance thing and keep it. And it just so happened that I end up getting robbed. So let me just give you a backstory about what happened that you may not be aware of. I was with Marquis. Actually tomorrow will make the anniversary, the 24-year anniversary, actually 25-year anniversary of the day that I got robbed. I was with Marquis. Marquis reaches out to me and he was like, hey, I got these girls, they trying to get up with us. You know how it is, right? We want to go to the hotel.
100%.
They wanted to smoke. I don't smoke. Where you going to go get smoke from? Down Newfield, right?
100%. Yep.
So I go down Newfield with Marquis, get out of the car. When I get out of the car, I walk into the store. Keep in mind, Tyron, I'm from the East End. I'm from the East End. And so when I go down Newfield, that's a place where I'm supposed to feel safe, right?
Yeah.
Half of these guys I grew up with. So a guy walks up to me and he says something to the effect of, if you're not from Newfield, you're not going to be coming down here. I never saw this guy in my life down Newfield. I had probably saw him like maybe one or two times, but he's a guy that was always in and out of prison. And I heard him saying something, but I didn't necessarily, it wasn't registering until he pulled out a gun. And when he pulled out a gun, I said, what are you doing with that? And he said, take your chain off. So I took my chain off and I threw it on the ground. And when he went to go pick up the chain, I had another chain on and I said, nah, you might as well take this one too. Because in my mind, I said to myself, if you rob me knowing who I was, you're going to suffer the consequences of everything that comes with robbing me. On my way to my car, someone else from down Newfield comes along and they conspire to, in effect, go into my pockets, take out a few $100s that I had, etc. During the interim, I actually put out a contract on the guy who robbed me. I had a $10,000 contract out on his life. That contract was taking too long to be executed. And so just so happened that I got frustrated and tired of the person that was supposed to have executed the contract. The day that you got shot, someone called me and said, this guy is down Newfield with the other people who conspired to be a part of this. I said, I'm going to go down there and handle my business. When I got down there, I didn't see you. Actually, I sent another person out there to scout to see who was out there. And explicitly I said, were there any kids? Are there any kids? Are there any women out there? The person told me no. I go down there. When I got down there, I saw the person that I was looking for. As I was shooting at him and he began to run, that's how you end up getting caught in the crossfire. And there are not a lot of things that I regret in life, but I can tell you for 14 years when I was incarcerated, I lived with what I put you through. Even though you were too young to have hate in your heart, I lived with having shame in mind because of what it is that I did to you. What was the time growing up? What was that like for you as you navigated school, trauma?
It was a little difficult. It was difficult just because a lot of kids out there knew, oh, that's the kid that got shot on Newfield. Some people mistake that for Seaside because I guess it was like a Seaside situation.
There was
the same day.
Yeah.
So some people was thinking, and it's crazy. Fast forward to that. the same person that got shot the same day as me, later down the line, dated my mom, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy how that ties in. But
so the same person who got shot at Seaside Park, which is another park in Bridgeport, the same day that you got shot, ultimately ends up dating your mom.
Down the line. Yep.
Down the line.
But as for like school, it was just tough just because everybody knew I was the kid that got shot. And, you know, people would joke like, oh yeah, man, you tough, man. You, if you could take a bullet, you could take anything. But them not knowing, yeah, body tough, but mentally it was just like, man, I don't ever want to be around this. I don't ever want to be around that. But the blessing in disguise, it made me not like to be around drama. It made me stay away from just the negative stuff. I don't like to be around too much people that's doing too much negative stuff. That's the blessing in disguise.
You know, it's interesting because oftentimes trauma has a tendency to define us. You go from losing your personhood. Your mom named you Tyron Rivera. You go from being the person who your mom named you to being the kid who got shot. I go from being the person that my mom named me to being the kid who got shot at 14, then to being all of these other subsequent things based off of the things that I participated in life. You said that you stayed away from drama. You have an aversion to it. Do you think that you are averse to drama and trauma because of what it is that you went through when you were young?
I think so. I think so. It made me just more wary of like, man, nah, don't go around that situation. You never know this could happen, or don't go around that situation. Like I tell even my siblings, some younger cousins in certain situations, nah, man, don't go there. I don't got a good feeling about that. It just gave me like better instincts to stay out of so much situations because you never know. You could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You gotta,
like how you were. Yeah. Actually, you were at the right place at the wrong time. You were in front of a yard playing, in your front yard playing, and you get shot. When you thought about me or the stories that you heard about me as I was away, what was going through your mind as it relates to the person who actually injured you, the person who actually shot you, i.e. myself?
For me, it was always I hear what everybody else saying, but I want to know for myself.
And what was everybody else saying as opposed to what it is that you wanted to hear for yourself?
Oh, it was more so of, oh, dude ain't no good, or, oh, dude, because he did this, he ain't right, or it was just, and then, you know, my mom naturally being angry, that's understandable.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But for me, it was always, I hear y'all, but I've always been the type of guy, I like to know stuff for myself. So I was like, whenever he, you know, he get out, or whenever he wants to contact me, I would love to talk to him just to get an understanding. That was always me. It was never, oh, when he gets out, I want to do this, I want to do, man. Because at the end of the day, that's what I say that's what they want us brothers to do out here is to keep doing the same thing when it's like, nah, man, I just want to know why. And I want to be able to tell him I forgive him. And what makes it easier to forgive is the fact that you made that change. You chose to do things. What defines you is what you chose to do after that.
Yeah, man. We met for the first time about during the pandemic, about 2-3 years ago. And I was nervous going into that meeting.
Yeah, me too.
What was coming up for you? What were you nervous about?
It was just like I finally get the chance to talk to him. I was like, yo, I don't know what dude look like. Nothing. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, because Marquis never told me. I never had, he's much older than me, so we wasn't like around each other all the time like that. I was around like his younger cousins and things like that. But, so I never knew what you look like. I was like, what does dude look like? What is he like? What does he do? And, you know, I started hearing, you know, certain things you was doing around town. I'm like, well, that he hasn't reached out to me yet at all. That's what I was just waiting for. And then it's crazy because I see you coming to the barbershop one time and I'm in there. I don't know who you are. And Mark tells me, you know, that's such and such. I'm like, word? I said, did he recognize me? He was like, yeah, he told me to tell you, you know, he would like to talk to you. And I was like, I wish he would have just came up to me, you know, but I understand. At the end of the
so
day.
let me tell you about that day. When I first saw you in the barbershop, you are now a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm filtering your life through mine. Let me give you an example. The person who shot me when I was 14 called me when I was about, 20, 21 years old. I'm full throttle on the street now. I got a name for myself. Nobody's going to hurt me again. And when he calls me, he says, hey, I hear that you're in the street and I want you to know that I'm a changed man.
Mm-hmm.
And would you be in opposition if the parole board got in contact with you to speak against me coming home? I said, nah, man, come home. Live your life. But I was doing the right things for the wrong reasons because my plan was to kill him
Mm-hmm.
for what he did to me. So I was interpreting your life through mine.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw you at the barbershop that day, I left because I didn't know if whether or not you noticed me
Mm-hmm.
or if you recognized me. And I was saying to myself, I'm in a different space in life and I didn't know where you were. I didn't know if whether or not you was going to go get a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if whether or not you were going to go get other people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was going to happen. So I end up speaking to one of the barbers, Mark, like, man, that was Tyron.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went and got someone
Mm-hmm.
who does community advocacy work, Anthony Marshall, who went to look for you
Mm-hmm.
so that we could have a conversation about that time
Mm-hmm.
you were gone. And so you see how two people can be in the same place
Mm-hmm.
and have two different points of references and have two different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you said you wish that I would have talked to you.
Yeah, because I was just like, but me being aware, I knew why. Like, I understood, like, oh, maybe he think like, oh, he never know what kind of dude. I could have been a street dude, like,
Yeah.
well, you coming to talk? No,
Yeah.
like you said. But me, I was just more like, I wish he would have just came up to me and said, like, my name is, and I would have been like, oh, it would have. It was crazy because when you walked in, it was like I felt the aura in the room. Like, it's like everybody else knew what was going on except for me at the time. So I just felt the energy in there. And when he told me, I'm just like, whoa, dang, I wish he would have came up to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you do get the call, when you do get the outreach, how do you feel? Like, what is that like for you?
It was nervous but happy at the same time. Like I was waiting. I was waiting because I think at the time you I think you was working for the mayor.
The mayor. I was working for the mayor. I was at the
Yeah,
mayor's
so
office.
I knew you were out and doing certain things and kind of some of the stuff you were doing. And I was just like, well, I'm waiting. And I heard you was telling the story too. I don't know if it was to guys that were like in jail or because I had cousins that went and they told me about it. And I'm just like, well, I'm just waiting for them to come reach out to me.
Yeah.
That's all. It ain't no issues. And I would tell certain people that could possibly get in contact with you, they'll tell them, man, I don't have no issues. I just want to talk to them.
Yeah.
I just want to know why. I want to know what happened. I don't want to know the story because everybody else, all the adults in the situation knew, but I didn't know anything. And, they never really truly explained to me the full details. They just tell their side. But it's like, okay, I understand your side, but I want to know his side.
Yeah. 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 And we meet in Fairfield. And the reason why I think the producers wanted us to meet in Fairfield, I remember they were very nervous. It was a whole bunch of white folks and they was very nervous. They was like, what's going to happen here? And the reason why they chose that location is because of like just the obvious fears. Like, who's going to show up where? How's this going to happen? What's going to go down? Is this going to be an ambush? There was a lot of different psychological gymnastics that people went through. And that's what fear does, right? Like, fear creates this notion about what's going to happen, this constant boogeyman, and then we meet. And I remember, like, when you got out of the car, I was looking at you and I'm like, this dude is like 6'2". And then the first thing I said, I was like, I remember having a thought, like, I wonder if he can ball. And then I was like, wow, like he's not the little kid, The lineup was still sharp, right? But I was like, he's not the little kid that I remember. And we sat and we talked. And I think that was very profound for me is when I asked you to forgive me. And you said I had already did that a long time ago. That was freeing for me because for all of that time, I was walking around with the shackles, just like how I used to be shackled on a prison bus. I was still in like psychological, emotional, and even like spiritual shackles. And I think that there was only one person who could take a key and unlock those handcuffs. Incidentally, you and I are a part of the worst day of each other's life. We've been a part of the worst day of each other's life. The worst day that I've had in my life up to that point was what it is that I did to you. The worst day of your then 5-year-old life up until that point was what it is that you experienced from me. How is your life now, considering that, I mean, I know, but for the purposes of conversation, considering what it is that you experience, et cetera, how is your life now?
My life now, man, I work, I'm laid back, man, and I just try to have a good time. That's me. I love having a good time, man.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like how my father is. Like, I like to have a good time, man. I like to see everybody having fun.
Yeah.
And that's just me, man. Like, I like to see everybody happy. That's me.
How different do you think that your life would have been if you didn't get shot?
Oh, man. You want to know something that's crazy? Not actually getting shot, but just that situation. I tell people I wouldn't change it because I wanted to stay back in first grade. That's one thing that affected me with school. I did stay back in first grade because of the trauma. But
yeah,
I wouldn't have met the people that I met today had that not happened. Because I would have graduated a year earlier. Maybe, you never know what goes on in the future, but I would have graduated a year earlier. I wouldn't have met my best friends that I met today if it was not for that happening. So I tell people I wouldn't even change it. If I could go back and had the chance to pull myself, I wouldn't even do it.
Wow. You stay back in the first grade because of the trauma, obviously. Because when you got shot, you were in kindergarten, right?
I want to say, yeah, I was just
getting
ready to go to first grade. Yep.
You were going into the first grade that year. Yeah, and did you get any therapy? Did you get any like psychological supports that you can remember?
I don't really remember. I don't think I really did. Nah.
No social workers?
Not that I can remember, no. Maybe my mom could probably tell that, but I don't remember. As far as I know, nah, man. It was just like, back to regular life after that.
And what's sad about what happened to you is not just what happened to you, but the thereafter. If that would have happened in a community like Greenwich, Connecticut, or Fairfield, Connecticut, or Beverly Hills, California, or somewhere else in an affluent community, there would have been social supports, the psychological supports that would have walked. Let's take, for instance, unfortunately, what happened here in our state, Newtown. Yeah. The kids who didn't even get shot, they had social workers who tracked them for years on end to be able to support them, dealing with their trauma, the vicarious trauma. And you get shot and you go back to...
The best thing I got was a bike from Gainem.
The mayor.
Yeah, the mayor. And it's so crazy because it's like full circle, because now we sitting here 24 years ago, Mayor Gainem was the mayor. That's 24 years later, he's the mayor again.
Wow. Wow, that is something that's absolutely remarkable. What are some of the questions that you had in your mind that I can answer today for you, that may not have been answered, or that we probably had a conversation about before that I can probably just add a degree of clarity to?
to be honest, the last time we spoke, I got like the ultimate closure. Like once you gave me like the story on what happened, and I matched it to what everybody else was saying, I was just like, you know what? It gave me more understanding with you. Even when I think we had that, what was it, like a video chat before, where when for the first time when I hear that you got shot when you were younger, it made me. I had already forgiven you, but it made me have sympathy at that point, because it was just like, well, Dad, look what happened to him too. So it was just like, it can't be no hate, like at the end of the day. And that's just not the person that I am anyways, but it just made me look how full circle everything. He got shot when he was younger. Ultimately, you did that to me, and now I have forgiven you, and that's what it's all about, man. At the end of the day, it's all about forgiving, love, and peace, man. 'Cause at the end of the day, if we don't do that, this world just never gonna be right at all. It's just never gonna be right.
Yeah. After we met, what was the feedback that you got from people who, you know, in effect knew that we had our initial conversation? What was that like for you? And I also just want to also mention as well, I reached out to your dad. I don't know if he told you.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, I reached out to your dad and I said, Slaw, I said, all of these years, I've been holding an apology to you. Now, initially when you got shot, he and I, we met, we had communication, but that was through proxies. It was through other people, right? He in the street, I'm in the street. You got to have people that kind of like broker certain conversations so that things don't go crazy. He knew that it was an accident, but still, this is my child, right? Like I'm in the street. I understand the street aspect of it, but the fact of the matter is that this is my child, and I completely respected that and made deference to that, right? To his anger as a result of what's happening. Also, considering how conflicted he was. Your father knows my family. My family was out there, right? Like your father has a child, your brother, with my sister's ex-best friend, right? Like, so, you know, everybody where we come from is related in some way, shape, or form. And I reached out to him and I told him, I said, man, I'm sorry. And your father responded and he said, man, that been forgiven. You know, like I know what's good. I know what was good. And he was like, you know, like, keep doing what you're doing. In effect, what he was saying is that that's your retribution to me. Keep doing what it is that you're doing. So post our initial conversation, what was that like for you in terms of having to go back? Your mom, obviously, like, she's a mother, right? She wants to protect her baby. Even, I don't care whether that's 24 years later or 240 years later, right? Like, what was that like with your friends, family, etc.?
My mom, it was the hardest one. Like, she supported me only because at the end of the day, she was like, you're a grown man, I'm gonna support your decision. It was harder for her. Like, even with me saying, well, Ma, I think you should sit down with him, it's, to this day, it's still tough for her. But now, it's not the anger I don't see from her now. But, you know, like you said, the mother thing. But everybody else, it was just like, people was just like so joyful and happy. Like, I even seen, even on Facebook, you know, everybody from the neighborhood was just like happy to see that.
Yeah.
You know, and people was calling me saying, you know, I'm proud of you. I respect what you did. You know, and it was like a great feeling, man. I'm not gonna lie. It just was that all of that helped me just get the closure off. And ultimately, not only did I do it for myself, you know what I'm saying, I did it for people that come after me. That situations like that may happen to. Like, we don't gotta resort stuff with violence all the time. Like, unless, you know, you're trying to protect your family. Everybody gotta protect their family, but revenge is not always, it's not the answer, man. Like, it's really not, because it's not gonna solve nothing, because now that person did something to you, then that person's family gonna want to do something to you. Then that person's family, it's a never ending cycle. It's never gonna end. It'll get to the point where y'all don't even know why y'all trying to hurt each other no more.
Yeah. Yeah. As we come to a close, I want to tell you, and I take you, I've always carried you with me in heart from a place of guilt when I was incarcerated. Post our conversation, I carry you with me in heart and mind from a place of celebration. I've met a lot of people across this country. I have met people who have been hurt by other people. I've met people who have hurt other people. I have not met someone who has the dignity, the grace, the forgiveness, the love, the empathy, and the all-around sense of humanity like how I've met in you. Every time we text, like, you know how they say, you my favorite notification?
Yeah, man.
You are my favorite notification. I was telling my family, if I can sit down with the person that I harmed, who was 5 years old, and be forgiven by him, I have no license to hold anything in my heart to anybody who hurt me, including the person who hurt me when I was 14 years old. Hence the reason why I want to sit down and have a conversation with him, to be able to give him what it is that you gave me, to unlock those keys, to get those shackles off, and to allow him to be free to the extent that I can, the way that you have allowed me to be free. You got the last word. What is it that you want to say?
Only thing I could say, man, it's just it's when you finally do get a chance to do that, and I hope you do get a chance to do that. I keep that in my prayers, definitely.
Amen. Thank you.
It's gonna be like the most relieving feeling ever. Like, it's just, for me, you made it easier for me. Just by what I hear that you do, just by what I see what you do, it just makes me forgiving you that much easier, because I'm just like, man, I see the change in them. I could do nothing but respect them. And sometimes I'll be like, yo, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be a part of some type of change.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be like, pull me with you. Like, you know, like, that's what I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Like, and trying to change someone else's life. There's people out here that have been through what I've been through and worse. And I just want to be a part of some type of change. That's what I feel like my purpose is.
Let me tell you something. Anytime you want anything, and I'm going to be extending invitations to you with whatever it is that I got going on, you are part of that. Everywhere I go, anything that I do, I take you with me. The other thing I'll share with you is this. And you probably remember Van Jones. We talked about this when we met. Van Jones had a show called The Redemption Project. And where he was talking about people who had harmed other folks, and he brought people together and to be able to facilitate exactly what we're talking about now, restorative conversations, restorative justice, so to speak, but just two human beings talking about how we can move forward from the hurt and harm that we've contributed one towards another. And one of the things that Van always says, breakdowns should, could, and will lead to breakthroughs. Breakdowns can lead to breakthroughs. And the breakdown where I shot you at 5 years old led to a breakthrough in terms of you leading with love, leading with grace, leading with humanity, and leading with that personhood. Tyron Rivera, I am indebted to you. I'm grateful to God for you. And I consider you, if you will allow me, I consider you family. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Yes, sir.
My man. We out.
Until next time, like, subscribe, share. Illmatic Podcast. Overcoming beats, surviving breaks. See you next time.